You have a purpose here, protecting someone.
The Mandalore Gambit, a symphony of obsession. Why millions died for a ghost. History is written by the victors, but it is often fueled by the obsessions of the broken. In the final days of the Clone Wars, the galaxy held its breath. On Coruscant, the Republic was rotting from within. On Utapau, the end of the Separatist movement was at hand. But on Mandalore, something else was happening. A siege was underway. A conflict involving thousands of clones, legendary warriors, and the return of an exiled Padawan. To the history books, the Siege of Mandalore was a tactical liberation. To the Mandalorians, it was the start of a long, dark night. But if you look closer past the blaster fire and the clashing lightsabers, you realize that this entire campaign was a lie. It wasn't a war for liberation. It wasn't even a war for power. It was a performance. A stage built with the blood of millions, set on fire by a man who had lost everything except his hatred. Maul didn't want Mandalore. He didn't even want the Republic. He wanted one man. He wanted Obi-Wan Kenobi. Today, we peel back the layers of the Mandalore Gambit. We explore how a master strategist's brilliance was undone by a petty, decade-long blood feud. We investigate the tragic irony of Ahsoka Tano being used as sacrificial bait, and how the entire Mandalorian civilization became nothing more than a footnote in a private war between two lifelong rivals. The architecture of a distraction. To understand the siege, we must first understand Maul's specific brand of genius. Unlike General Grievous, who was a tool of the Sith, Maul was a victim of them. He knew how Palpatine operated. He saw the threads of the grand plan because he was once a thread himself. By the end of the war, Maul knew the end was coming. He felt the darkness rising. He knew the Jedi were walking into a trap from which they would never return. But Maul's tragedy is that he couldn't just walk away. He needed closure. Why Mandalore? Because Mandalore was loud. It was a neutral system with a high profile. By seizing control through the Shadow Collective, Maul created a localized catastrophe that the Jedi Council could not ignore. He knew the Republic's bureaucracy. He knew that if he caused enough chaos on a world as significant as Mandalore, they would be forced to send their best. And for Maul, the best only meant one person. Imagine the psychological warfare at play. Maul wasn't just conquering a planet, he was ringing a dinner bell. He used the suffering of the Mandalorian people as a signal flare. Every civilian imprisoned, every street blockaded, was a message sent across the stars to Obi-Wan Kenobi. Come and stop me. Come and finish what you started on Naboo. He understood the Jedi's greatest weakness, their compassion. He knew that Kenobi, a man defined by his duty and his past relationship with Duchess Satine, would feel the pull of Mandalore more than anyone else. Maul was banking on the Council's predictability. He was betting that the Jedi would send the man he hated most, allowing Maul to settle his score before the galaxy reset into a Sith empire. The wrong guest, the Ahsoka factor. The tragedy of the siege begins the moment Ahsoka Tano steps onto the platform. When Maul looks at Ahsoka, he doesn't see a formidable opponent. He sees a disappointment. He sees a wrong delivery. Maul had prepared a grand finale for Obi-Wan. He had rehearsed the dialogue, prepared the traps, and sharpened his blade for the man who cut him in half. Instead, he got a girl who had walked away from the Order. This is where Maul's tactical brilliance begins to fray. He is a man of singular vision, and Ahsoka was an anomaly. However, Maul is a survivor. He quickly realizes that while Ahsoka isn't the man he wanted, she is the perfect intermediary. She is emotionally compromised, disconnected from the Council, and she is the apprentice of the one man Maul fears even more than Kenobi, Anakin Skywalker. During their duel in the throne room, pay close attention to Maul's behavior. He isn't fighting to kill her, not at first. He is fighting to convince her. He tries to share his vision of the coming darkness. He tries to recruit her. Why? Because if he can't have Kenobi's head, he will take Skywalker's apprentice and use her to disrupt Palpatine's plan. But beneath this, Plan B, lies the same old obsession. Even while talking to Ahsoka about the end of the Republic, he is constantly checking the horizon for a blue lightsaber. He is distracted. He underestimates Ahsoka because she isn't the person he spent 10 years dreaming about. He treats her as a secondary character in his own play, unaware that she has grown beyond the role of a mere bait. This is the fatal flaw of the Sith mind, the inability to see the value of anything that doesn't serve their immediate ego. To Maul, Ahsoka was just a tool to get to Kenobi, and later, a tool to get to Anakin. He never saw her as a warrior in her own right, and that lack of respect is exactly what allowed her to survive. The Kenobi fixation, a tunnel vision. Now, we must go deeper into Maul's psyche. Why Kenobi? Why, when the entire galaxy was about to be reshaped by Darth Sidious, was Maul focused on a Jedi Master on the other side of the Outer Rim? It goes back to the concept of identity through hate. Maul was discarded by the Sith. He was a lost son. Without his hatred for Kenobi, who was he? He wasn't a Sith Lord anymore. He wasn't a king. He was just a fragment of a man. His rivalry with Obi-Wan was the only thing that made him feel connected to his past glory. Maul's fixation on Kenobi is a form of psychological trauma. Every mechanical step he takes is a reminder of Naboo. Every breath is a reminder of the man who took his future. On Mandalore, Maul wasn't trying to win a war. He was trying to reclaim his soul by destroying the man who broke it. This tunnel vision is what blinded him to the reality of the war. While Maul was obsessing over Kenobi's location, Kenobi was on Utapau, doing his duty and ending the droid threat. Kenobi had moved on. Kenobi was a servant of the light, focused on the mission. Maul was a slave to the dark, focused on the person. This is the fundamental difference between the two. Obi-Wan Kenobi is the man Maul could never be, a man who could experience loss and not let it define him. Maul's inability to understand Kenobi's stoicism drove him into a frenzy. He couldn't fathom that Kenobi wouldn't come for Mandalore. He couldn't fathom that he wasn't the center of Kenobi's world. By the time the clones began their assault, Maul was already defeated, not by the Republic, but by his own disappointment. The realization that Kenobi wasn't coming was a greater blow to Maul than the 33rd Tech Company's blasters. Strategic blind spots, the cost of hate, Maul's obsession, didn't just hurt his pride, it destroyed his strategy. Maul had the most valuable information in the galaxy. He knew about Order 66. He knew the clones were designed to kill the Jedi. He had the power to change the course of history. If Maul had focused on the actual war instead of his personal vendetta, he could have organized a real resistance against Sidious. He could have used the Shadow Collective to create a third power in the galaxy that could survive the Empire. But because he was so focused on Kenobi, he made a series of critical errors. He stayed too long. He waited on Mandalore for a man who wasn't coming, allowing the Republic to pin him down. He alienated his allies. He treated the Mandalorians like garbage, ensuring that they would turn on him the moment the tide shifted. He underestimated the clones. He knew they were dangerous, but he didn't account for their efficiency. He thought he would be the one doing the killing. He didn't realize he was just another target on a list. The most tragic moment of the siege isn't the destruction of the city. It's Maul's scream in the rafters of the ship as he realizes that everything he predicted is coming true, and he is powerless to stop it. He saw the fire coming, but he spent all his time trying to burn one house instead of building a fire break for the whole forest. He was right about Anakin. He was right about the Jedi. He was right about the Empire. But he was so wrong about Kenobi that none of his rightness mattered. He ended the war in a cage, a prisoner of the very distraction he created. The legacy of a footnote. What is the legacy of the Mandalore Gambit? For Mandalore, the cost was total. The beautiful glass cities were shattered. The people were divided, leading directly to the Imperial occupation and, eventually, the Night of 1,000 Tears. A civilization was broken because a former Sith wanted to bait a Jedi Master. For Ahsoka, it was the loss of her innocence. She survived the siege, but she lost her brothers, her order, and her faith in the Republic. She was the bait that survived the trap, only to find herself in a galaxy that had no place for her. And for Maul, the siege was the beginning of his final descent. He escaped, yes. He built a criminal empire, yes, but he remained a ghost. He spent the rest of his life wandering the galaxy, still looking for that same man. From the shadows of Crimson Dawn to the deserts of Tatooine, Maul never escaped the tunnel he built on Mandalore. The ultimate irony is that when he finally did find Kenobi years later, the result was the same. A few seconds of combat, a quick strike, and it was over. Maul died in the arms of the man he hated, finally realizing that Kenobi was never his enemy. He was just a mirror, reflecting Maul's own inability to let go. The Siege of Mandalore was a tragedy of scale. It was a world-ending event for the Mandalorians. But for Maul and Kenobi, it was just another day in a lifelong argument. It teaches us a terrifying lesson. In a galaxy governed by the Force, the personal obsessions of a few powerful individuals can outweigh the lives of millions. The mirror of history. We often look at the Siege of Mandalore as a grand military victory, a high point of the Clone Wars series. But when you look through the lens of Maul's obsession, it becomes something much darker. It becomes a story about the waste of potential. Maul could have been a savior. He could have been the one to stop the Empire before it started. Instead, he chose to be a jilted rival. He chose to burn a planet just to get a glimpse of a ghost. As we look at the ruins of Mandalore in the era of the New Republic, we must remember that those ruins aren't just the work of the Empire. They are the scars of a private war. They are the physical remains of a distraction. Millions died for a ghost. A planet was broken for a grudge. And in the end, the man Maul wanted didn't even show up. This is the tragedy of Maul. This is the cost of the Mandalore Gambit.